Somebody's going to hear my side before this thing is over. Rough and rugged, burning careers and flames. Somebody's going to hear my side before this thing is over. Playing our songs, hoping you'll remember our names. Quote, Alan Klinger and Roy Allen Pace. Making Music, a song. Chapter 1, My Brother's Keeper. My oldest brother Ira and I were finishing a stretch of shows, the last in Georgia, and we decided to stop by Mama and Papa's place on Sand Mountain for a quick visit. Of course, we'd barely got on the road before Ira reached under his seat and pulled out a bottle of whiskey, and he drank the whole damn thing on the drive. When we pulled up to the house, I stepped out on my side and Ira just kind of poured himself out on his. Mama was out in the front yard, and you could tell how excited she was to see us. She came running up to try to hug Ira, but he put his arm out to hold her off. He was wobbling on his feet, barely able to stand upright. She knew what was going on. Mamas know everything. "Oh, honey," she said, "why do you have to do this to yourself?" She wouldn't even take the communion in church unless they had grape juice instead of wine. She didn't use alcohol, and she didn't understand anybody who did. She should have known better than to say that, though. Nothing pissed Ira off like when somebody tried to put a little guilt on him. "Oh, leave me alone," he said. "I ain't hurt nobody." "You're hurting yourself," she said. "That's who you're hurting." "Yeah, well, I don't remember asking you," he said. Tried to light a cigarette. He was so drunk he couldn't even get his lighter to make a flame. "God damn it," he said. "That whiskey don't do you no good," she said. "It ain't do nobody no good." Finally, he got his lighter to work and he poked his mouth at the fire, lighted the cigarette, but he missed. "Your father's in Knoxville," she continued. "I sure am glad he's not here right now to see you like this." Ira threw the still unlit cigarette on the ground. "Will you shut up, bitch? I can guarantee you the fucking fight was on then. I beat the shit out of him right there in the front yard. He was lucky it was just words, too. If he had touched her, I'd still be in prison. Shit, if Papa was there, he might have killed him. But I just kicked his ass all over the place. Then I stuffed him in the car and we drove away. I know you ain't asleep," I said to him once. We got on the highway. "I know you ain't asleep," I said to him once we got on the highway. He was curled up on his side of the car, holding his busted face. "I'm gonna tell you this once. If you talk to Mama like that again, I'll beat the shit out of you again. I'll do it every time. You can lump it or try to change it. That's the way it is." "Oh, hell, I didn't mean nothing by it," he slurred. "That was just the old whiskey talking." "That ain't no excuse," I said. "Nobody forced you to drink that stuff, and you better not ever do it again." Then I stopped talking and just drove, fuming. And I thought about that day 19 years ago when I saw Roy Acuff driving past the farm in his big air-cooled Franklin. I thought it must be just about the best thing on earth to ride in a car like that. Now I was driving down the same road, a grand old Opry star in an automobile almost as nice, and it felt like I was suffocating, like I was being buried alive in it. I thought about that day 19 years ago when I saw Roy Acuff driving past the farm in his big air-cooled Franklin. I thought it must be just about the best thing on earth to ride in a car like that. Now I was driving down the same road, a grand old Opry star, in an automobile almost twice as nice. It felt like I was suffocating, like I was being buried alive in it. Chapter 2, An Air-Cooled Franklin. It was a warm afternoon in early autumn. The sky was clear blue and the sun was shining down, but it wasn't burning hot like it had been most of the summer. Papa was using the mule to pull a stalk chopper in one of the fields. We picked clean, cutting the cotton stalks into the ground. You couldn't till for the next crop of cotton unless you got rid of those stalks, and chopping them into the soil returned some of what the cotton pulled out. If there was any work at all Papa could find to do with the mules, he'd do it. He knew he had to keep them working if he wanted to make a living, just as he knew he had to keep his children working too. He was a lean, hard, weather-beaten man. And even though he was only 5 foot 5 inches tall, he had a way about him that made him look at least twice as big. Even as hot as it was, he was wearing a long-sleeved shirt under his overalls, buttoned right up to the neck. I don't care if it was 105 degrees in the shade, he wouldn't wear nothing else. Once that shirt got wet with sweat, you'd look at anybody who'd peeled off their shirt in the heat, say in a satisfied voice, "Well, now I'm cooler than you, aren't I?" That was one of his beliefs, that once you got wet with sweat, your shirt would help you catch the breeze. My brother Ira and I were in another field. The last of the season's cotton pausing every few minutes, picking. My brother and Ira and I were in another field picking the last of the season's cotton, pausing every few minutes to look over our shoulder for Roy Acuff's automobile to come tearing down the dirt road that ran by our farm. Ira was about 16, I was 13. We've been waiting for the singer and the fiddler since we pulled up on our cotton sacks and walked out of the house at sunrise to begin the day's work. There was nobody bigger than Roy Acuff to Ira and I. We'd known that Roy Acuff would be driving past our house that day because Ed Watkins, who owned the mercantile store, had a radio in his living room. And the last Saturday, as soon as we got done in the cotton fields, Ira and I had run down to Watkins' house and joined all the other farmers on the porch to listen to the Grand Ole Opry. We'd known that Roy Acuff would be driving past our house that day because Ed Watkins, who owned the mercantile store, had a radio in his living room. And the last Saturday, as soon as we got done in the cotton fields, Ira and I had run down to the Watkins house and joined all the other farmers on the porch to listen to the Grand Ole Opry. There was about 25 of us gathered in the dark of that porch, and then 25 more in the yellow light of Watkins' living room, leaning into his old radio. Everybody knew what artist was going to be. Everybody knew what artist was going to be on at what time and when their favorites came on, and they stubbed out their cigarettes and moved inside to hear them. Well, the folks who were done listening to their favorites got up and came outside. Everybody on the porch was just as quiet as those inside. The radio was a little thing, not much of a speaker on it, and you had to really listen to hear what was going on. We did. And as soon as we heard Acuff being announced, it was our turn to go inside. We sat down on the rug, just as close to the radio as we could get. Well, Acuff sang his songs and we got up to leave. But we just made it to our feet. We heard him start talking, announcing upcoming shows. When he got to the one next week at the Spring Hill School in Alabama, it felt like somebody had sucked all the air out of my lungs. Ira's eyes were as big as pie plates, and I'll bet mine were the same. He grabbed me by the arm quick and pulled me outside away from the porch so we could talk. "Did you hear that, Charlie?" he asked in a whisper. "That's our school," I blurted out. "I know every road in this country. There's only one route he can take to get there, and it's right by our house. We're going to see him drive by." Yes, we are, Ira said. And then we're going to see him play the show. How we going to do that, Ira? We ain't got no dime. Neither one of us. Well, Ira said he had a plan. And as we worked our way down the rows of cotton that afternoon, I wondered what it was. Of course, Mama and all our sisters were out there picking too. Even though Mama did all the housework, she was always out there with us in the field when it came to picking time. And, as usual, she had a little one with her, riding on her pick sack. Mama never cared for Roy A. Cuff much. She didn't really care for anybody on the radio. Most of the songs she liked were 100 years old or more. And our sisters were completely uninterested in A. Cuff too. He was known for being old-timey, even then. And they liked the more modern music. So Ira and I paid them no attention at all. Paid them no attention at all, my sisters. Then Ira and I heard it. The roar of an automobile engine off in the distance, closing fast. We straightened up from pulling the cotton boils, and there it come. Ripping along, not 100 yards from our house, a trail of dust billowing out behind it. Roy A. Cuff and his Smoky Mountain boys and girls painted all the way down the side. We never seen anything like that automobile. It had 4 doors on each side, and it was so long I wondered that it didn't need hinges in the middle to navigate some of the turns in our old cricket road. We stood there holding our cotton sacks, watching it drive by until it disappeared into its own dust. Then we bent over and got back to picking. We knew better than to let Papa catch us standing around. So how we gonna get a dime to see that show? I finally asked Ira as we filled our sacks. It's only a dime if you're trying to get inside, Ira said. It won't cost us nothing to stand out in the yard and listen. You know how hot that gymnasium gets. If they leave those windows closed, everybody in there will suffocate to death. They'll have to open them. And then we'll be able to hear as good as anybody inside. It was awful hard to argue with Ira when he had his mind made up to convince you of something. And I didn't really need a whole lot of convincing anyway. So we kept our eyes fixed on Papa, waiting for him to give us the go-ahead to be done for the day, getting more scared every minute that we weren't going to make it to the show before it started. Papa kept us working right until the sundown, too. I couldn't even tell you if we ate supper before we lit out for the show. We might have grabbed a hunk of cornbread on the way out the door. But I do know, that we made the 2 miles to our school in 10 minutes flat. When we came to a stop in the schoolyard, we were glad to see that we weren't alone. The program hadn't started yet. But the high school gymnasium was packed with people. There were more in the front yard than there were inside. At least 300 of them, milling around, smoking cigarettes, making conversation. All of them straight out of the fields just like us. We were kindly thrilled to see them all. That way it wouldn't look as bad as if it was just us standing out there on the lawn by ourselves. We mixed and mingled our way through the crowd, saying hello here and there, moving closer and closer until we found the perfect spot. As close as we could get to the window, to still be far back enough that we could stand on our tiptoes and see the show. Suddenly Roy A. Cuff appeared on the stage. Behind him was a regular 4-piece band, including a doghouse bass player, a guitar picker, Rachel Veach on banjo, and a bashful brother Oswald with his dobro. Roy himself held a fiddle in his hand, but it was just his stage prop. He balanced the bow on his nose from time to time, but you never did hear him play. Rachel was wearing a nice gingham dress. But all the men was dressed in overalls and white shirts. The only one dressed a little different was Oswald, in his big floppy hat and oversized shoes. I believe they thought overalls and white shirts represented country people, and I suppose they did. It was what we wore anyway. I don't think I owned a pair of pants until I was grown and married. Rachel and Oswald also had some of their teeth blacked out with a pencil, which everybody thought was funny in those days, and in between songs they'd clown around and pretend to be brother and sister. Ira and I laughed at the funny parts, but mostly we was there to hear the songs, to judge them against the versions we'd heard on the Opry, and against the versions we sang for our friends and family. They played Great Speckled Bird and Wabash Cannonball, both of which Ira and I knew by heart. They played a gruesome old song about death that was older than anyone in Roy's band and probably from the 17th century. While the band was playing, we latched on to every note, every word. I could hear Ira breathing next to me, but I didn't dare turn away to look at him. And then, just as quick as it started, it was over. By 10 o'clock, they loaded their equipment in the car, waved at the crowd, and pulled off down the road. I watched them go. Ira and I had the same feeling, like we was watching a funeral. It was harvest time, and night was cool, but there was no big harvest moon as we walked home, just stars and clouds. Did you see the inside of that automobile? I asked Ira. I saw it, he said. He was walking fast and fidgeting with his hands. I was probably as worked up as he was, but I was trying not to show it. He was an air-cooled Franklin. How did you figure that out? I asked. I was quiet for a few minutes, walking for a few minutes, then falling behind his long strides and having to run to catch up. What do you think it's like to ride in a car like that? It ain't like nothing we ever rode in, Ira said. That's for sure. I ain't even ever seen one like it, I said. How much do you think it cost him? I can't even guess, Ira said. Well, how much money do you think he made tonight? If he charged a quarter a person, I'd say he made more than $100. $100, I said. Buddy, that's money. It'd take Papa 2 months to earn that much, Ira said. I hesitated. He almost seemed angry. So I wasn't sure I should say what I was thinking, but I said it anyway. There are some of those songs I think we do as well as he does. Ira didn't stop fidgeting with his hands, but he grinned, and I realized he hadn't been angry at all. He was just studying that same thought. There are some that we do even better, he said. There are some that we do even better. Because there we were. We'd sung most of Acuff's songs. We knew them as well as he did. The people on Sand Mountain liked our versions. Roy Acuff had triggered our love for country music. He was, of all things, true to his music. But, still, maybe we could do some of them a little better. It took us nearly an hour to get home, and compared to the 10 minutes it had taken us coming the other way, both of us lost in convincing ourselves that that's exactly what we're going to shoot for. That we're going to play on the Opry and tour in one of those air-cooled Franklins. We convinced ourselves until we just knew that we were going to do it. The only trick left was how. Chapter 3, Persimmons.